Coming up on Talk is Cheap, we got Michael Tellinger joining me via Skype. I ask him about the Ubuntu movement, make clarifications on it, and I ask him about the flat earth. Up next on Talk is Cheap. Talk is cheap, where cheap is talk, and talk is cheap. I'm Dan Hohlfeld, and today I'm real excited, Michael Tellinger. Now, Michael Tellinger is a South African author, archaeologist, and politician. In 2012, Tellinger founded the Ubuntu Party in South Africa,
based on its principles of contributionism.
It took part in the 2014 national elections. Tellinger is the host of Hidden Origins, which discusses history that has been kept in the shadows. The show is available now on the Gaia Network. Michael, thank you for joining me.
It's a great pleasure, Dan. Thank you for taking an interest in my work and what we do with the Ubuntu movement.
Oh, definitely. So I did your a recap of the Ubuntu thing on episode 60, and you said we took some stuff out of context. So please set the record straight. What did we say that was wrong?
Oh, yeah, it's difficult for me now to go back and pinpoint the things that were taken out of context. I think it's going to be easier to have another candid discussion about it and just outline the plan of action of the Ubuntu movement, and specifically our One Small Town. I watched with great interest as you showed clips from the video of the One Small Town video, and then your hosts sort of took some of the points that we make in the 3.5 or 4 minute video. They took that and they sort of when I say they take it out of context, is that you take one point that actually encapsulates a huge amount of work. So you can imagine you can't describe a large body of research and work and planning with a small statement. It requires a deeper insight and understanding how this will be implemented. So that's really what I wanted to talk to you about and answer any misunderstandings or lack of information, so that your audience and your viewers can actually get a deeper understanding of how simple it is, how simply we can extract ourselves from this financial slavery system that we find ourselves in, and join the excitement that people around the world, I guess, share when they discover the Ubuntu movement and find our message and our plan of action and our philosophy, and realize that there is a way out of this insane world that we find ourselves in.
Well, this is a very complex thing. Like you said, there's so many different angles you can take on it. One of the big things that we kind of thought, like Pete over here asked, you got a community of 4,000 to 7,000 people, and then that's kind of, like you said, that's the target range. Why is that the target range?
Well, very simply, we have to assume that in the beginning, not everybody is going to want to participate. And to make this work, you need numbers. You need enough people to make this thing work. To when they start working together, that you've got enough people, enough of a labor force that are voluntarily donating their 3 hours a week, so that you have enough people for all the different projects, community projects, which are actually small businesses that are owned by the people of the town. So a town of 5,000 people, we figured if 20% of the people participate to start off with, that still gives you a labor force of 1,000 people that contribute 3 hours a week. That gives you 3,000 hours of labor a week. That is enough labor, enough people to do enough work to be able to uphold a lot of different businesses or community projects.
So when you start these out, the first thing you're going to want to do is make sure you take care of the basic needs and get all that settled, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I must also make a very clear distinction here between the Ubuntu plan of action and the Ubuntu philosophy. Now, the Ubuntu movement is founded on the philosophy of Ubuntu, which belongs to the world. The philosophy of Ubuntu, people working together, helping each other, supporting each other in community, that is the spirit of Ubuntu. I am who I am because of who we all are. That's the fundamental meaning of the word that is most commonly used. or definition of the word Ubuntu. I call it unity within community. And I've taken this philosophy of Ubuntu and we put it onto a platform that we can, or that would be sensible in the 21st century, in the crazy world we find ourselves in. We can't go back to living in mud huts or living in the Stone Age or living in ancient times. We've got to wake up tomorrow morning, face reality, have a shower and wash your face, have your breakfast, and jump in your car or on your bicycle or hit the pavement, whether it come rain or shine, and go to work. And this is the reality that 7 billion people face every day.
I think that's the biggest thing. Yeah. Like that's what people are scared of. Like you said, we're like going back to the dark ages. And I think a big part of this is that free energy technology systems have to come out to make it so, you got the, people's food taken care of and transportation without having to, go back to horse and buggy, if you will.
Well, this is the question, in my book, in the Ubuntu contributionism book, under the frequently asked questions section, there's all these questions are covered, and it's actually, in many ways, it's a crash course in the philosophy of Ubuntu and contributionism. Now, the word contributionism is a modern word that I came up with in 2005 that represents the philosophy of Ubuntu in the modern world, modern society. Contributionism, the meaning is in the word. People contribute their skills and talents or acquired skills and talents towards the greatest benefit of everyone in the community. So that's why it's called contributionism. Not capitalism, not socialism, not communism, not fascism, none of the other isms that we've ever had. Contributionism is like no other ism we've ever had, because what it does, it removes money from the system. Or let me rather rephrase this. It creates the platform in which we can gradually remove money from the system because we no longer need it. But to initiate this, and this is where the big thing comes in, to initiate this, we're going to need money.
Yep.
In fact, it's taken me about 10 years to really go the full cycle and work this thing out, because money has become so interwoven into our lives, into our society, into our reality, that we cannot, most of us cannot imagine a world without money. And it takes a while to deprogram the way we think about everything in our lives. And it's taken me about 10 years to realize the following harsh reality that I've really started sharing with people only about a year ago, when I started saying that we're going to have to use the tools of enslavement that have created this mess on this planet and enslaved every single one of us from birth to death. And those tools are money and capitalism. So it's actually going to be money and capitalism that become the tools of liberation. And it's in that video that you played, where at one point I actually say that there'll come a time in our one small town where our community projects or our businesses become so successful, they make so much money for the community, that we won't know what to do with the money, because we don't need to use the money, because everything we create is for free for ourselves. So we don't need to use money at all while you live in your town, in your community that practices contributionism. So that's at that point that people realize that we don't need the money, we need each other. But you need to use the tools of enslavement to create the platform and the environment in which we no longer need the money. And that's just some weird, twisted fatalistic reality that we have to face and deal with.
Yeah, we covered that before, how money is just a slave system. And, if a planet's got a money system, it's basically, you can't get out of it, because there's always that form of control. And that's the number one problem right there.
Yeah. Well, the entire thing about money is the money system was created, according to my research that I share in great detail, about some 6,000 years ago, by the first priest kings that suddenly appear on planet Earth. And these are the guys that turned their temples into the first banks, and they were the guys that started issuing the first forms of money in the forms of clay tablets, which are actually exactly the same way that banks work today. And they started issuing the first money, and that money was created and introduced in such a way that it actually destroys everything that tries to overturn it. It's incredible. every community project that you start, every initiative that you start to help underprivileged societies or communities or grow food or whatever it is that you start, the moment you run out of money, the project collapses and falls flat until it becomes self-sustainable in the environment that it finds itself in. But even then, it carries the risk of failing for as long as it depends on money to keep it alive, and customers to use the service or buy the products that the project or the business creates. And therein lies the big difference between intentional communities and Ubuntu communities or towns that operate under or in a contributionist system. And this is the big distinction that I'd like to draw, which I started saying earlier, and then we got distracted. The philosophy of Ubuntu and the Ubuntu movement, which has come up with a plan to free humanity from the constraints or the slavery of money by using the Ubuntu philosophy. And there's a huge difference. As you know, Dan, there are dozens, if not hundreds, of intentional communities around the world. Findhorn, Esalen are just two examples of such intentional communities. And these communities are basically just a larger extension of me. It becomes us. You know, they've got strict entry restrictions. You can only join the community if you have X amount of money, or you buy into this or buy into that, and you got to do that, and rules and regulations, and yet all these intentional communities in which the people seem to be very happy. I believe there's one also in Switzerland since the 60s, late 60s, I think, that have got their own free energy device, actually. But yet these intentional communities have had no impact on the world around them.
What kind of energy device?
Because these intentional communities just operate like little islands inside an ocean of capitalism. You know, it's all very good that the people inside those communities are happy and looking after themselves, but outside the walls, the big bad wolf is lurking, waiting to eat you up when you come through those doors. So with the Ubuntu movement, we realize that that's not a solution. We got to come up with a very different approach. And first of all, sharing the knowledge and information about money, the origins of money, the banking systems, how it's evolved from the ancient times to today's banking families, how they keep control of our governments, how they keep control over the central banks, and how they basically run the world through their exclusive right to print and issue money. That's as simple as it is. Now, we got to overcome that by creating a new system in which we no longer need their money. Now, how do we do that? And that's really the solution that we have evolved with the Ubuntu movement over the last 12 years. This has not been an overnight ideology. This has evolved since 2005, and we learn along the way and learn from our mistakes. And we're open to realize and recognize when we make mistakes, and when we learn something new, we put that on the table so everyone can benefit from that.
But those energy systems are a big part of this, and you said Switzerland had one? What do they have?
No, there is an intentional community in Switzerland. I forget what it's called now, but they've apparently, I cannot vouch for this, but apparently their success is based on the fact that its founder developed a free energy device, and the entire community is based and run on this free energy device that provides energy for the whole community. And that, in essence, is actually the model for the one small town.
That's what you need, yeah.
Because all we need to create this one small town can change the world, which we know is going to happen. Because once we create this town that where people live happily, they have everything they need, they create everything they need for themselves. Why would you want to go anywhere else if you go and have to get a job and work like a slave, where in your town we have unbridled scientific exploration and scientific discoveries, unbridled exploration and healing in our hospitals and healing centers, unbridled exploration and innovation in new materials, in town planning, in fossil fuel, in what kind of transportation do we use? The question is, when you put this town together, all you need is the consensus from the mayor and the council and a number of people of the town, and we're pretty much away. because the whole idea, as you read in the bullet points from our One Small Town manifesto, is very simple. And the whole thing is founded on the supply of electricity to our town. First thing we need to do is, as a town, find our own source of electricity, which belongs to the people, which we provide to ourselves, whether it's river electricity, whether it's sunlight, whether it's new exotic alternative generation of energy, which we know we can create. But right now, those that invent those new energy devices are either killed or removed from the system. So if I'm the mayor of a small town and I choose to take this route, and by the way, we have a number of small towns. We have probably in excess of 20 towns right now already in the USA, in Brazil, and in other countries, in Canada, that have shown interest in going this route and taking this contributionist and Ubuntu plan and putting it into action for the town. So if I, as the mayor, and my council agree we're going to do this, I'll go out and call a public meeting, call the people of the town together and say, people of town, this is what we plan to do to change our town into a beautiful paradise for everyone. And we're going to do the following. And I, as the mayor, go through the steps of what we want to do. You know, how many people do you think are going to say, no, I'm not interested in this. I'm going to move out somewhere else and be a slave in a coal mine?
That's what I wanted to ask you. Like, so you said we have some USA towns. Can you name a few? And like, how far is that coming along?
Oh, Dan, I'm sorry. I don't have the names of the towns of Pat. It's just, you know, when it comes onto my radar, I deal with about 1,000 emails a day. So when those emails reach me, I send them to the USA Ubuntu team and the USA Ubuntu coordinators and the project manager there, Brandon Shelton, who's spearheading the Ubuntu USA One Small Town campaign. And they are contacting the small towns and the relevant people and initiating the communication with those relevant people. So in some places, it is a mayor of a town. In some places, it is someone on the council or a senior member of the community. But it is getting traction and more interest pretty much on a daily basis.
Oh, nice. So I want to get into a little nitty gritty here because we had a lot of questions. Like one of my big questions here is what's to stop people from taking more than their share? Like we had an example, like you go to the supermarket and you can have the lobster tails and somebody would just, you know, would there be rationing? I guess that's the main question. Would there be rationing on food or other supplies?
Yeah, again, you know, what you're asking are the frequently asked questions in the Ubuntu book and on the Ubuntu website, which are actually very funny and laughable once you step away and you ask yourself, well, why am I asking those questions? And again, all the questions that you come up with like this, these are, over the last 12 years, I must have faced probably 100,000 or more of questions like this. And these are all questions based from our experience, our reality in a capitalist-driven, money-driven society in which scarcity is imposed upon people and value systems are added into the systems and values are placed on items and commodities and services, where in our town that no longer applies. Once we start contributing our 3 hours a week, which the system is based upon, if you have a town of 10,000 people, let's use the number 10,000 because it's easy to do the numbers, and everybody contributes 3 hours a week, you got 30,000 hours of labor a week. Now, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that with 30,000 hours of labor every week, you can move mountains. In fact, we just turned our town into a very powerful labor force that very few corporations, not even Microsoft, not even Apple or the biggest corporations in the world can't even compete with our with this labor force that we've just turned our little town into. Now, with this kind of support from the community, we can do anything we choose. First of all, as you may know from the manifesto, whatever we do, we're going to do at least 3 times as much as what we need for ourselves. All right? So when we as the people of the town put our plan of action together for growing food or making computers or doing whatever it is that we need, we will be cognizant of how much we need. And we can be as generous as we want to be, because we're doing it for ourselves. So if we want to say, okay, everybody is allocated 10 potatoes a day, so we must make sure that we grow, 10 million potatoes for the year so that everybody gets 10 potatoes a day. But we want to actually grow 3 times as much. So we're going to grow 30 million or whatever million potatoes it is, so we can export the 2/3 to the outside world and our neighboring towns. So when you start asking questions like, what about gluttony, and will people just take and hoard? One of the things that flies out the window, or basically the things that fly out the window when you implement the system of contributionism, are basically the 7 deadly sins. No envy, no gluttony, no hoarding, no whatever, no envy. All those things just fly out the window, because you suddenly, as a contributing member of your town and your community, you have access to everything everyone else has access to. All the food that we grow, all the technology we create, all the healing we have available in the hospital, everything is available to us. So just imagine this scenario. Why would I go to our Ubuntu warehouse, which is no longer a shop? It's actually going to be an open marketplace where our goods get delivered and displayed to the people to come and help themselves. Why would I take 20 shrimps or 20 prawns, knowing that they might go off over the next week if I don't eat them, when I know that they'll still be there the next day and still be there the day after that and still be there? I can come every day and get as many prawns as I need to eat without ever feeling that I'm not going to get any. Do you understand how that changes the entire system?
I see.
And why people
you just take it as you need it.
People are not going to come and, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I didn't think of it that way.
Yeah. So again, Dan, the important thing here is when you start asking these questions about, and I'd like to give you 1 or 2 examples, and hopefully that'll create a trigger effect.
Sure.
To be able to answer all the other questions, right? So once we get this One Small Town initiative going, just imagine the situation. You're part of the council. I'm the mayor. And we call a town meeting. We tell everybody what we're going to do. Everybody gets very excited. We analyze the talents of our people. Who are the rocket scientists, who are the engineers, who are the inventors and the healers that can cure cancer, who are working in McDonald's because they can't get a job at the hospital because the hospitals don't want to cure cancer, as you know. These are all the problems we face in the capitalist system. So suddenly we're going to have all these talented people in our town that will be put to work in their areas of skill and talents. And then I'll do something else as the mayor. We get the video cameras and our own media teams that we set up for our own town to make sure that the right messages are filmed and put out there, the right positive propaganda for our own town that's actually doing something good for a change. And every day we put out our own news and our success stories to the world using the global social networks. And I invite, as the mayor, basically, I go out there and say, if you are an inventor or a scientist or a healer or an engineer, and you've got any special skills or talents, if you can cure cancer, if you can create a free energy device, if you can create a new material for which we do not need to mine our planet, etc., etc. If you're a farmer that has specific ways of growing food that is better for the earth or better for the community, come to our town. We will give you whatever you need to be able to create your cure for cancer or create your free energy device or whatever it is you want to do, because you'll be doing it not only for yourself, but for the benefit of everyone in our town, and then for the benefit of everyone outside of our town and our community. So now the next question is, how long do you think it's going to take our town to create a free energy device when I, as the mayor, invite all the inventors and scientists into our community? How long will it take before we have our own free energy device?
I would hope soon. Not too long.
Exactly. They're out there. They are out there. But the inventors and the scientists that are and the engineers that are doing these things, many of them are starting to realize that their lives are in danger.
Well, yeah, they file for patents and then they're shut down.
Yeah. And the moment they release it, the patents are either bought up or they or stolen, or they killed, or they tortured, they threatened, or their families are threatened, and they just simply. I have met many, many inventors that have been threatened who've simply removed their inventions from the system because they want to live. They don't know how to release it. Now suddenly that changes completely. because now it's the entire town and the mayor and the council. We're making it public worldwide. We're not keeping it secret, and we're going to share this with the world for free. And this changes everything, okay? The reason why all these devices and new energy and cures for cancer are always shut down and they never reach the people is because they depend on money so that they can get produced and manufactured and reach the world. Now we're going to change that and turn it on its head. We're going to create and provide the platform and provide the funding so that it can happen and benefit our community and benefit the rest of the world at the same time. And so how long will it take before our people in our town drive cars on free energy motors, or a little motor that generates electricity on its own? In other words, an electric car, a Tesla car that never ever needs to be recharged. Can you see how that threatens the Tesla technology, for example, the Tesla car industry? You know, and so it goes. How long do you think it's going to take before our hospital starts to cure cancer? Very quickly, because we know how to cure cancer. There are many people that know how to cure cancer. So now you got to ask yourself the next question. How much money will our motor engineering company make in our one small town from producing our little electric cars?
How big of a labor force are you talking for the cars in particular?
There you go. You see, we got 10,000 people in our town.
So you
how
probably
many
only have like
motor car
a portion.
engines are we going to make every month?
Right.
It's up to us. We'll decide how many. The question is, how much money is our town and that one community project going to make? It'd be making billions per annum. The next question is, and that's just one project. And then the next question is, how much money is our hospital going to make or our healing center going to make? Because that's one of our community projects. All the healing and all the care is for free for all our people. As long as you contribute your 3 hours a week, you have all that healing and caring for free. But we're going to charge the people from the outside world, all the people that live outside that'll come to our town to be healed of cancer.
So let me ask you about that. So you say, so it's only, let's get this straight. So 3 hours per week for the community, and then it's 3 hours per day on labor of love, correct?
Well, you decide what you want to do. So here's the interesting thing, right? What happens when you no longer have to go to your slave job every day? You know, get up at 5 a.m, get ready, then catch a train or a tube or a car and take 2 hours to get to your work, and work like a slave for 8 hours, take another 2 hours to get home, by which point you're tired, exhausted, you still have to cook for your family or look after your family or teach your kids or go through all that stuff, by which time it's 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, you're dead in, on your
like
feet.
A big headache.
All you do is, it's just insanity.
Oh my God.
That disappears. Okay, that's suddenly gone. You wake up every morning and you choose to do what you love to do. Now, if you're a rocket scientist, you're going to be attracted to the laboratory and the engineering works in that field. If you love horses, and if you're a horsey kind of person, and if you know horse people, you'll know what I'm talking about. Horse people are bloody crazy. They want to live with the horses. They want to sleep with them. They want to feed them and groom them. They don't ever want to leave the horses. You know? If they could, they'd live in the bloody stables.
Damn right.
Now,
they
do
would.
you think that 3 hours a week is going to be enough for a rocket scientist or a crazy material scientist or an engineer?
And that's what
is
we're
it going to be enough for them to work in the engineering factory?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
It's not going to be enough.
No.
The horsey people are going to work with the horses all bloody day, every day. The engineers are going to work in their chosen field all day, every day, not just 3 hours a week. So what happens automatically is we're going to produce and create much more than just 3 times as much as we need. Can you see why?
Yeah. You love what you're doing, you're going to keep doing it, right?
Yes, exactly. So therein lies the absolute revelation of the liberation of not only our time and our physical bodies from this capitalist slavery system. It frees up our bodies, our minds, our souls, our spirit, and with that comes the rapid rise of consciousness and the collective consciousness of your entire community. People no longer live in fear of not having enough food or a roof over their head or not having enough money if they get injured to go to hospital or whatever. Everything is provided and the best quality is provided. So let's go back to some of the questions. One of the questions that we get often, the frequently asked questions for new people to this is, does this mean we go into the dark ages because there's no money? We're going to live in caves and have no technology. Can you see how insane that question is?
Yeah. That's kind of another question. Like let's say, you have 3 hours per week to the community, but I'm playing devil's advocate here. Let's say like somebody got sick, like you're sick for a month, like really bad. I mean, how would that work? Would you be thrown out, or how does it? I mean, these are good questions.
I mean, if you're sick, you're sick. You're not going to not work because you're going to, claim that you're sick. If you're sick, you're going to go and get healed. And when you're healed, you come back and you carry on doing what you do.
Okay, so you're saying with the instant healing that would be...
Everybody in your community knows that you're sick. Because remember, now you live in a close-knit community. When members of your family are sick, what do? Do you force them to go to work? You say, no, stay at home, get better, take medication, heal yourself, get strong. You don't force sick members of your family to work. That's evil. And now suddenly your community is your family. So people will be looked after. And the same goes for elderly people or people with disabilities. They'll have the best help and the best care. Suddenly elderly people who in a capitalist world are marginalized and sidelined, put into old age homes and just wait for them to die so that the insurance companies don't have to carry on paying their pensions. All right. So suddenly that changes. We don't have that concern anymore. Suddenly the elderly, who should actually be the wise men and women of our community, imparting their knowledge to the children and the youth as they're growing up, sharing knowledge and experience with the young people to turn them into well-balanced and adapted adults. These elderly people will have a very important role to play in our communities, doing and performing tasks that are suited for elderly people and getting all the medical care, all the support, scientific, technological, any kind of support that they can get. One of the community projects, obviously, is going to be taking care of elderly people or people with needs. That's a community project.
Yeah, I like that. And, like, instead of the old people sitting in a nursing home, they can share their knowledge and continue developing the community.
You throw a bunch of elderly people around a table and give them stuff to do. Boy, they're so excited and so happy if they can do something, especially if it's something they love to do. Some old people like to do carpentry and welding or building ships or looking after chickens and ducks or whatever it is. Some people like to sit around the table, talk rubbish and knit. And so suddenly everything that was previously made in factories so that we save on labor is going to go back to being made by people and hands, real love. Remember, everything carries energy. Everything is imbued with our spirit and our energy and the love that we put into what it is we do. So if you cook food with love, that food is nurturing and healing. It actually heals and nourishes your family. If you cook food while you're in a bad mood or you're angry and you put hatred into the food, it could make your family and yourself sick. The same thing with the clothes you wear or whatever environment you find yourself in. So suddenly, in our towns, in our environment, when we make everything with love, with excitement, with enthusiasm, because the people that are doing it love what they do and are putting their passion and their soul into it, that material is imbued with positive energy. It's such an incredible chain reaction that when you start really digesting what we're doing here, it's much bigger than just freeing us from economic slavery. It's creating a whole new paradigm of higher consciousness and a spiritual enlightenment platform as well.
So you got this going on in South Africa. Can you go over the progress? Are you self-sustained down there now?
Okay, now that was one of the things I needed to point out. That is one of the misconceptions that you guys reached, the wrong conclusions. And you're referring to the Ubuntu Farm South Africa, I believe. Now, Ubuntu Farm South Africa is just a community project. It is not a town or a community that has decided to do this and work together. Ubuntu Farm South Africa is just a project that started where we look after animals and we are growing food and we're doing all kinds of stuff to teach the locals skills, new skills, because it's about skills training and skills transfer. So volunteers from around the world with skills and knowledge to come and help us establish the food growing, the seedlings, the seed security, and the seed vaults, and the bottling and the canning of the fruit and the jams and so forth, and various other things that we're doing there. So that is not an Ubuntu town or an Ubuntu community that is launched. It's just a project. So don't confuse the two.
Okay, so you don't have any Ubuntu going in South Africa. I thought you had all that because I was watching your YouTube channel too, and you had the fish farm and all that stuff that you were trying to get so you can sustain food for the community.
Yeah, pretty much all those projects that we tried to launch over the last 4 years have failed, not because of lack of want, but a lack of money. They're just, unfortunately, when people get involved in some of our projects in South Africa, we've got a very unique situation because in our town, we have a 70% unemployment rate. 70% people do not have jobs. Yeah, it's very different from most parts of the world. Or the Western world. So when you start a community project, people join with great enthusiasm, believing that it's going to bring them something very quickly. And as you know, these projects take time to start to deliver, even growing food. You have to wait months before the food is ready to eat. So unfortunately, if you don't have enough money, that initial thing called money to sustain the project during the first 6 to 12 months, it's inevitably going to fail because eventually the people will run out of steam and enthusiasm for the project because they're getting nothing back. They keep having to give and give, and they get nothing back. Yeah. So these community projects are very, very difficult to start. And this is the reason why I say, and why with the Ubuntu movement, we do not promote the launch of intentional communities where people say, well, I've got a big farm, I've got a big land, I want to turn it into an Ubuntu community, I want to invite people to come there and live and all work together. Let me tell you what, that is a very, very difficult thing to do. It is almost impossible to launch a community like that. It's always inevitably the money that gets in the way, then the personal ego, personal agendas. Some people think we should be doing this. Others feel we should be doing that, and you start arguing. And I've experienced this over the last 4 years, which has been a very important lesson and part of the learning curve. This is why we now have very clear understanding of that the one small town approach is the way to go. Because in the one small town approach, we have a willing mayor, a willing community. We have all the infrastructure, all the buildings, all the plumbing, all the sewage, all the electrical wiring. Everything is there. The road infrastructure, the entire town is there. You don't have to build anything. You don't have to create anything. The warehouses, the factories, the bakery, the dairy, everything is there. All you have to do is change the way the people think. So many people jump to the conclusion that, yes, we need to create a new community and start from scratch. The answer to that is no, no, no. You're thinking the wrong way. Let's use existing communities, existing towns. You don't have to do anything except change the way the people think and let them start working together in this cooperative, collaborative structure towards a contributionist system.
I think a big thing would be getting rid of the taxes on the land and stuff too, because I don't know how it works in Africa. Do you have taxes on your land?
Oh yeah, it's taxes everywhere. Wherever there's a central bank controlled by the Rothschilds or the Rockefellers, you know that there are taxes. So you can't escape that. However, you know that there are laws, there are corporate structures. And again, this is where we have to revert back to using the tools of enslavement to become the tools of our liberation. So in the USA, for example, and different countries have different kinds of corporate legal entities. For example, you have a 501, I believe, in the USA, which is a tax-free company or a non-profit company. In South Africa, we have a similar thing, a non-profit company and a public benefit company, which does not pay tax. So all you got to do is use these legal systems for the benefit of the whole community. So you turn your town into a giant non-profit company that doesn't pay tax.
Damn.
So there are ways to get around it.
Yeah. So touching back on the Africa thing, do you still have the community center?
the community center was one of the few successful projects that we completed. We took a rundown, vandalized town hall, fixed it up, and made it useful. And about 2 months ago now, the town council stepped in and just basically did a hostile takeover and took the town hall back from us. I kicked and screamed and shouted and sent them a bill for the money that we spend on fixing the town hall. And there was it was about 300,000 rand, about $30,000 that went into spending on fixing that town hall, fixing the everything, from the electricity, the water supply. It was just a mess. And they just took it back. And the moment they took it back, I just heard from one of our volunteers that was working on fixing it up, told me 2 days ago that the town hall is already starting to go down and starting to get vandalized again. And it's just one of those things. You can't win. You can't beat the system by playing the game inside the system. We have to do something different. That's why the one small town strategy is so powerful.
Very powerful. I want to go to a couple questions from my audience that left in the comments. Xeon Gaming says, what's to stop someone from getting weapons and friends and stealing your town? Who's protecting it? Would there be a police force, or how would that work in the beginning, of course?
Oh, of course. I mean, think about a normal town in the USA. To be able to do this in the USA, or any other country for that matter, you're going to have the police and the sheriff on your side to work with you. Work with the mayor, work with the town council, knowing that the moment you start doing this, there will be paid infiltrators that will be sent to destabilize you. And I know all about paid infiltrators that keep destabilizing the Ubuntu movement. I come under attack, not often, but every now and then, there's this little spate of attack on me, right? This Tellinger is so evil, and he's doing this, and he's doing that, and he's stealing money, and all these that's how they do it. They always try and destabilize the movement by attacking an individual. You can't shoot the message, because it's very difficult to undermine the Ubuntu message. It's a message of love and unity. So you can't bring down the message, but you can try and bring down the messenger. So that's how they always do it. So, in our town, once we launch the town, you can just imagine, if I come under attack right now, I can just imagine what will happen to the town and the mayor and the town councils, town council members and the sheriff when we start doing this in the town. There'll be infiltrators that'll be sent in by the bankers and the political elite. They'll be sending those infiltrators into our town to cause havoc, and we're going to have to protect ourselves in our town against that kind of infiltration.
Yeah, well said. Derek Walker said, what if things like jet skis, Ferraris were part of the community resources? You don't need to own them, but just have them for your fair share. Is that something that how you'd run that?
Absolutely. That's one of the favorite frequently asked questions. If everything is free, I want 20 mansions and 30 Ferraris. And if you go to the Ubuntu book and read the answer, you laugh because it's silly. So you're telling me in our town where we drive levitation technology vehicles, we don't drive cars, you're going to want to drive a Ferrari?
Yeah, I guess if you've got the technology, you wouldn't need to. Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
You know what I mean? And what are you going to drive a Ferrari on? What are you going to put in the tank? We don't sell petrol in our town anymore. How are you going to drive a Ferrari? And why would you want to drive a Ferrari? Are you just so arrogant that you want to show off with your stupid little Siri Ferrari while everyone has moved on to levitation magnetic technology?
So you're saying we'd still have vehicles, but they'd be like the future vehicles that would just be self-sufficient. You wouldn't have to have something that would take gas, of course. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Once you have free energy, that changes the transportation system overnight. And the entire petroleum industry collapses. So understand how dangerous this is and why the energy industry is probably the most fiercely protective sector of our society. The electricity, the petroleum, the oil, the car industry, that is like, they will protect that. They will kill, they'll murder, they'll remove everyone from the system if they feel it is in any way threatening the entire global empire.
Yeah, they've been doing it for so long, and then they've had the UFO technology since the 40s, 50s, and this stuff has been ironed out, but here we sit with this gas systems we got right now, and it's like, what the hell? We're ready for the change.
Exactly. All that technology is out there, and we'll be using it in our little town, and it's going to be very difficult to stop it once the entire town and the people and the mayor and the council embrace it. It's not just one guy trying to sell it to the world anymore.
So yeah, that's number one. Get that technology out, and I can definitely see this working.
I've dealt with the Ferrari issue, and of course, there'll be people that love cars, that love the old cars. Like today, we look at cars from the 30s and the 40s with great love and admiration and nostalgia, I guess you can call it that in some weird way. And the word nostalgia is a very interesting one. Why is it that things are always better in the good old days? Why is it always the good old days and the terrible terrible today? That clearly shows us that things are not getting better, things are getting worse all the time, because we always talk about the good old days, right? So
I would say all of it is technology.
So we'll probably have people that love the Ferraris and the sports cars, and that they'll have all the tools and the technology and the materials to be able to build these cars and to be able to drive them and create tracks and path and roads to be able to drive them on and experience that car for what it is. But it's not going to be the main transport system for the community and the people anymore. It'll be like a novelty from the past that the interest groups will get together and build kit Ferraris and kit whatever, and then it's available for everyone to experience and everyone to drive when they need to.
Okay, I'm looking at your manifesto here, and it says at least 20% of the residents express their support for one of the small town initiatives. You only need 20%, you think?
Well, this is why we chose a figure of a town of 5,000 people, because 20% of 5,000 is 1,000 people. And if you look at the manifesto, 1,000. If you have a town of 1,000 people and 50 community projects that you start the entire plan of action with, it gives. I don't know if it mentions it there. It should somewhere. It gives. It still provides about five people per project every day to work on every project and in every business. If only 20% of the people participate.
Okay, just have them participate, and then the other people will sit back and watch, and then once they see that it works, then they'll join in.
Yeah. So the question is, how long will the rest of the people sit on the fence when they see their friends that are contributing 3 hours a week? That's all they do, 3 hours a week, and they get free electricity, free food, free milk, free bread, free butter, free shoes, clothes, whatever it is that you start producing in your town. Suddenly they're getting all that for free for just giving 3 hours a week, and the other people are, or snob, whatever, say, I'm not going to do this. It looks silly. It looks like a slavery system. I mean, you must hear this, the things that people say. It looks like a slavery system. And I go, really? And you think you're not a slave today? Are you insane?
It's an illusion. It's an
3
illusion
hours
of not
a week
being a
and
slave.
you think that's a slavery system?
All right, I want to shift gears now. I was watching a video earlier today. So you believe in the flat Earth? Is that correct?
No, not correct. I believe in exploring our reality. I believe in asking questions to which there seem to be very difficult and confusing answers. And I'm the number one promoter of investigation, of research, and of exploring new frontiers that have been sold to us as a holy cow. Everybody's believed, and we've all grown up with the ball earth thing, and suddenly there are some very serious problems with the ball earth theory as we've grown up with, and that's what I'm investigating and finding that a lot of the answers I get no longer support the ball earth theory, but support something else. Whatever that else is, I don't know. But what my scientific research has shown me very clearly, that there's been a very clear agenda over the last 500 years to promote this ball earth theory at the expense of some big secret or some hidden agenda that we're starting to figure out for ourselves. And it's an exciting journey. Just like to me, the investigation and the research into what is the nature of our reality, what is the shape of our planet, is as exciting as it was thinking about a world without money. It's the same kind of excitement that I'm experiencing.
So the number one question you must have asked yourself is, and I'm curious what your answer is, so what happens when you get to the end of the flat? What's your answer when you get to the end of the flat Earth?
Well, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. But at this stage, what I can tell you is that in my scientific research and understanding of the nature of our reality and how things manifest into this physical world that we find ourselves in. And if you don't know enough about that, there are some lectures that I do online. They're free. You can watch them. I'll be doing more this year in the USA and in Europe. And there's very interesting developments in the understanding of what this nature of reality is, and how sound and resonance are the source of everything in creation. And sound and resonance bring forth, that come out of this, what some people refer to as the infinite field of consciousness, or the prime resonance frequency, or God, or the Holy Spirit, or call it whatever you want, whatever background you come from. But it's the sound and resonance that brings forth everything in creation. Everything has its own prime resonance frequency. And once we understand that prime resonance frequency, we can therefore manipulate matter. We can kill bacteria and viruses. We can make things explode, make things fit together, we can when you understand the prime resonance frequency of something, you manipulate that something in whichever way you choose. And sound and resonance are the tools that were used by ancient civilizations, which I've collected the many tools in my museum that I have here in my little town of Attribution, where I've discovered this ancient civilization of more than 10 million stone structures left behind that are energy generating devices. They're not dwellings for people or animals. They generate huge amounts of energy. They have no doors and entrances. They're all connected to each other. And they use the subtle frequencies and the subtle sound that comes out of the earth to amplify that and harness that and turn it into powerful electromagnetic fields that are then somehow connected together and were used for something. We still haven't figured out what the hell they were doing with all this incredible amount of energy. So I sort of distracted, went off the track of it. But yeah. What's important to understand is that everything is connected through sound and resonance.
Sure.
So sound and resonance moves. Sound moves. It creates these toroidal vortex fields. Probably the easiest description. And these toroidal vortex fields look like little donuts. They look like these tiny little donuts, and these donut shapes that are at the source of everything in creation. And you see that at the shape of the electron seems to be a donut shape. The latest study of what what they reckon the shape of an electron looks like. Or what the shape of an atom is, what the shape of our solar system is, what the shape of our galaxies are these giant toruses. These toruses that suck matter in from the poles, and where they meet, that's what you would call the 0 point, or the where you cross over into other dimensions or other densities, or the genetic field, or it's being called many different things. So as the energy and the matter then collapses and comes through these holes of the donut into the middle, it then pushes out this disk of matter, just like our galaxy. If you look at the images of our galaxy, they always show us this giant torus that pushes out the matter at its galactic equator. all the solar systems in our galaxy are supposed to be in these big arms that are pushed out, that are spiraling arms that come out of the center at this galactic equator. So my question is, if the galaxy is a torus shape that pushes out all the matter at its galactic equator, all the solar systems are the same structure that pushes out all the planets and all the matter at its galactic equator. The electron and the atoms are the same shape. Everything that comes into existence is that torus shape. Why should the Earth or other planets be any different? Why should they suddenly go, oh, sorry, at this level, it's now a big ball and it's no longer a torus shape? Can you understand?
Do you know Corey Good? You were doing interviews with him on Cosmic Disclosure. So when they took him in the sphere, and he said he looked back, he saw that it was a sphere. The Earth was a sphere.
Okay.
I don't know if you believe his story or how much.
Yeah, that's what I don't know. I'm not saying that I can't tell you what shape the Earth is because I do not know. And what I do know is I do not believe a bloody word that NASA tells us. That's
for sure.
I've now come to the conclusion.
Yeah, we've covered them before on the
NASA.
show, and
it's a joke.
The rover can't even climb a freaking sand dune. It's like, what the fuck? So
yeah.
All right, your Skype connection's getting kind of sloppy, so I want to wrap this up. Is there any final thoughts? Any websites you want to promote?
Well, the most important website is the ubuntuplanet.org website. That's actually, we're launching our new website this weekend, I believe. And that's going to give all the countries in the different languages the ability for the Ubuntu team and the Ubuntu management teams in those countries to be able to manage the Ubuntu movement in their own language, in their own country, and grow their own membership and spread the message to their own people in their own language. It's a very exciting time for us.
I think this is great. Like I said, I love the idea. I'd love to see something happen. I'm really looking forward to it, and I'd love to see more progress on it. So thanks for coming on, Michael. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Dan, thank you very much for your interest, and good luck with the show, and keep sharing the information, my friend.
Will do. So there he goes, Michael Tellinger. Check him out. I would love to see it. Like I said, this whole Ubuntu movement is a great time to get a big fuck you to capitalism, because we know the whole money system is a pain in the ass and things need to change. So thanks for joining me on Talk is Cheap, and we'll see you later.